Hey adventurers, so today is going to be a book review for The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson. I just recently put out my review for the Alloy of Law and for Shadows of Self, and so this is the third book in Mistborn Era 3, so I don't really need to do a whole lot of setup in terms of what this book is. But of course this is high fantasy, this is like a fantasy western, but kind of moving past the western stage into the more industrial timeline. So that's kind of one of the things that makes this series so cool to me. It is Mistborn Era 2, Book 3, and yeah, that's really all I need to say about that. So, the Bands of Mourning, as I just mentioned, is the third book in Mistborn Era 2. This is my second read of this one, and I was able to understand so much more about the Cosmere implications this time around. So the first time I read through Era 2, I hadn't yet read anything other than Era 1 and Elantris. So no Stormlight, Warbreaker, anything else like that. Because of this, I knew a whole lot more of what to look for in this read. That being said, even without all those connections, this is still an enjoyable story. The first time I read this, I enjoyed it for the story that it was telling, and the second time, it was all the Cosmere connections that made me love it so much. That made me appreciate it so much more than I had the first time, because I loved it the first time, love it even more the second time. This one is much more of an adventure or quest story than the first two books were, and the core four, meaning Waxwayne, Marasi, and Steris, they all take a trip together. That part is super cool. That part is very fun for me. The story of why they had to leave, what draws them, and by them I mean Wax, because as you read the story you'll understand what I mean by that. What draws them into going on this trip, and the overarching storyline of this series really coming to the forefront of the series in this book. The first book felt very self-contained. The second book still felt pretty self-contained, but with a little bit more of this overarching storyline peeking through. In this book 3 really brings it and pulls it front and center. And I think the highlight of this book in many ways is the exploration of Steris' character. She becomes a main character in this book, and we really get to see what kind of person she is. I thought when I initially read this that I was alone in my enjoyment of her character, until I started listening to other people's thoughts on these books and found that it's actually a very common opinion to like Steris. And it's kind of surprising to me. It was very surprising to me, because I tend to like characters that a lot of people don't like sometimes. There's so many readers out there that readers like. You'll always find characters that readers don't like, but that there's always readers who like. So Steris is one of those characters, though, that I thought, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be one of the people who actually likes this character when nobody else does. But no, I guess a lot of people really like Steris' character. We also explore and learn so much more about Scadrial than we ever have before. And things we learn have massive ramifications for many things, both Mistborn and Cosmere. And I can't really go into what all that means because of spoilers, but the implications of this book are massive for both Mistborn as a storyline in and of itself, as well as the Cosmere as a whole, and how that works, and whether or not some of the things that happen in here actually connect to the Cosmere in the way that I'm thinking they might, or guessing, or whatever it might be. I don't know, but it's kind of cool for me to look and find out and see all this stuff. I've heard that it is super important to read Mistborn: A Secret History after you finish this, as in like just go right into Mistborn Secret History after you finish this book so that you're not confused about some things. I still haven't read Mistborn Secret History, and I didn't read it after I first read this, so I was pretty confused on some things until I started learning more about what was going on, more about the Cosmere, more about how certain things work, listening to people like 17th Shard or some of the many other Cosmere theorizers, I guess, and learning more about the Cosmere as a whole, and then I started to understand a little bit more about what was going on here. So don't be like me, go and read Secret History. The way this one ends, though, it leaves so many questions, but in a way that you don't think about what still needs resolved. The Sanderlanche in this one is very real, but there's still clearly so much more to come in book 4, and I think with just a few little teeny tiny tweaks to this book, you could make book 3 the end of this series and you wouldn't need a book 4. But there are some changes to book 4 that happened, there's some things that happen at the end of book 3 that you are like, okay, now we do need a book 4 because of this. And some of them I didn't realize or notice until this reread. A lot of them, in fact. I'm not entirely sure, but this might at this point be my favorite of Mistborn Era 2. I really like Alloy, and I really like Shadows, and I really like bands, but I like them all for different things, which is very different because Mistborn Era 1 all feels very similar in many ways, whereas Mistborn Era 2, each book feels very individual in its own way. And I kind of like that. It's cool to see the skill that Sanderson has in being able to write in these different ways and to tell these different types of stories, not just different stories. And if that makes any sense, I don't know that it does. But I think this might be the one that I've enjoyed the most, but I'm not entirely sure. Again, I'll have to wait until book 4 and then look back at Era 2 as a whole and see what I think of it. Anyways, that is my review for The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and have our social medias linked in the description down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys again soon. Stay warm.